Hello and welcome to the ESOL overview for mainstream educators for the 2025-2026 school year. My name is Dr. Elizabeth Hardy and I serve as Director of Multilingual Learners for the Aiken County Public Schools. This required training has been designed for all certified teachers and instructional staff across our district. It provides essential information about our Multilingual Learner program, including how students are identified for services, the responsibilities of classroom teachers, the role of ILAPs, and effective instructional strategies for supporting language development. You'll also learn how to use the Elevation platform, what types of communication and documentation require translation, and how to comply with federal and state language access requirements. At the end of this training, you will complete a 15-question multiple-choice quiz, and a passing score will be required to demonstrate your understanding of these responsibilities. Thank you for your time, your attention, and most importantly, your commitment to making sure every student, regardless of their English proficiency, has access to meaningful, high-quality instruction every day. In Aiken County Public Schools, the identification process for multilingual learner, or ML services, begins the moment a student enrolls for the first time. As part of the enrollment process, parents or guardians complete a required Home Language Survey, or HLS. This survey asks 3 simple questions about the languages spoken by the student and their family. If a parent indicates that any language other than English is spoken by the student is flagged for review. At that point, the student is referred to the ML specialist at their school for one of 2 things: either a WIDA screener, which is administered to students in grades K through 12, or a review of records if the student is transferring from another district where they may have already received ESOL or ML services. If the student qualifies for support based on their screening or previous records, they are officially identified as a multilingual learner and placed into the ML program. They remain in the program until they demonstrate proficiency by earning a 4.4 or higher on the WIDA Access Test, which is administered each spring. Once they reach proficiency, they are not immediately exited. Instead, they enter a 4-year monitored status and are coded in PowerSchool as M1 through M4, depending on how many years they've been monitored. After successfully completing 4 years of monitoring, they are coded as 8 FRMEL, which stands for Former ML. At that point, they are considered fully exited from the program and are officially recognized as bilingual. We also have a special case for students who screen proficient in their first semester of kindergarten. These students are automatically placed in the M1 monitoring category for 4 years and then coded as 8 NVREL, which stands for Never Received ML Services. Similarly, students in grades 1 through 12 who screen proficient on the WIDA screener, meaning they do not need ML services, are also coded 8 NVREL and are not enrolled in the ML program. It is important that all teachers understand this process, as these codes are visible in PowerSchool and Elevation, and they determine whether students receive services, accommodations, or monitoring under the Multilingual Learner program. Now let's take a look at the current landscape of multilingual learners here in Aiken County Public Schools. As of this school year, we serve 1,931 multilingual learners across the district. These students are enrolled at every grade level from kindergarten through 12th grade. Here's a breakdown of where our ML students are served. 907 students are in grades K through 5. 497 are in middle school, grades 6 through 8, and 527 are in high school, grades 9 through 12. What's also important to understand is the linguistic and cultural diversity represented in our schools. Across our ML population, we support students who speak 37 different languages. While Spanish is by far the most commonly spoken language, we also serve students who speak Mandarin, Gujarati, Arabic, Swahili, and Mixtec, among many others. This map on the right gives you a geographic view of Aiken County, but it's important to remember that language diversity exists in every region of our district. ML students are enrolled in schools from New Holland to New Ellington and Graniteville to Wagner. Recognizing and valuing this diversity is essential to creating inclusive learning environments and ensuring equitable access to instruction for all our students. Every teacher plays a role in this effort. One of the most important things we can do as educators is to understand not just the academic needs of our multilingual learners, but also their cultural backgrounds. In Aiken County, the largest percentage of our ML population comes from Hispanic and Latino families, and this slide offers a quick overview of values that are commonly held within those cultures. First, many of our Hispanic families are highly family-oriented. This reflects a value system known as collectivism, where the family's needs, unity, and well-being are considered more important than individual preferences or independence. There is also a deep respect for those in positions of authority, such as teachers and school administrators. Because of this cultural norms, many families will not question or challenge school decisions. This might mistakenly come across as disinterest, but in fact is a sign of trust and respect. Many parents in our ML population work multiple jobs or irregular hours, and they may not speak English fluently or feel confident communicating in English. This can make it difficult for them to attend school meetings, answer phone calls during the day, or respond quickly to school communications. It's important not to misinterpret this as lack of care or involvement. In reality, family comes first, and they are doing everything they can to support their child, often behind the scenes. Additionally, all forms of work are considered honorable, regardless of income level or status. This perspective may influence students' views on school and future goals in ways that differ from what educators typically expect. Finally, strong interpersonal relationships are highly valued. Building genuine connections with students and their families is not only respectful, it's culturally responsive and makes a real difference in student success. The more we understand where our students come from, the better we can serve them. One of the most common questions we receive from teachers and school staff is, what exactly do I need to translate? This slide outlines the categories of documents and communications that must be translated either for parents or for students to comply with federal language access laws and our district expectations. Let's start with documents sent home to parents or guardians. You must translate anything being sent home that a parent is expected to read or sign. Syllabi, parent-teacher conference communications, permission forms for student participation in field trips, special programs, or extracurricular activities, failure notifications, and yes, even text messages, emails, and phone calls if those messages are intended for a parent whose preferred language is not English. For students in the classroom, you are responsible for translating instructions and directions when that accommodation is listed in their iLap. This includes directions on assignments, directions on tests and assessments, directions for projects, class syllabi, and any information about classroom or school events that they are expected to understand or participate in. The key point here is that parents and students must have equitable access to critical information regardless of their language background. When in doubt, ask your ML specialist, check the ILAP, or refer to the Elevation platform for support. In the next slide, we'll discuss which documents do not need to be translated and the very specific conditions around that. Now that we've covered what does need to be translated, let's talk about what does not require translation and why. In the classroom, items like handouts, teacher notes, and reading passages do not need to be translated. However, there is one major exception. If a student's ILAP requires translated directions, then the directions associated with these materials must be translated. You are welcome to provide students with a translated version of classroom content for support, but it must always be given in addition to the English version, not as a replacement. Students should receive the same instructional materials as their peers with added supports, not different materials altogether. Let's move to assessments. According to federal and state guidance, quiz and test questions themselves should remain in English. But just like with classroom materials, the directions for assessments must be translated when required by the student's ILAP. This distinction is especially important during classroom testing and when preparing modified assessments. The instructions help ensure that students understand what's being asked of them. The content remains in English. In the clarifying guidance section below, you'll see the 3 takeaways. ILAP stands for Individualized Language Acquisition Plan, and this document is what determines whether translated directions are required. While translated directions may be offered, core academic content should always be provided in English unless an ILAP specifically states otherwise. All state assessments, including SC Ready, end-of-course exams, and Access, are always administered in English. The only component that may be translated are the directions, again, if the ILAP requires it. As a general rule, when in doubt, refer to the student's ILAP and reach out to your ML specialist. We are here to help you provide support that's both equitable and compliant. Now that we know what needs to be translated and why, let's talk about how we can make communication easier and more accessible, both for families and for us as educators. Aiken County provides several tools that allow you to connect with families in their preferred language, and it's critical that we use them consistently. First, we have Aptogee in Rooms, which is the district's preferred method for messaging families. These platforms automatically translate messages into the home language selected in PowerSchool, meaning parents receive school communication in a way they can read and understand. If you haven't set up or used Rooms yet, please talk with your school's technology contact or ML specialist. It's simple to use and extremely effective. Second, don't forget the power of built-in tools in Microsoft Suite, particularly in Word, Outlook, and PowerPoint. These programs have built-in translation features that allow you to draft and then quickly translate your content before sending it out. This is especially helpful for newsletters, family meeting notes, or assignment directions. And finally, if you need to make a phone call or have a conversation in real time, we offer HIT services, which provides over-the-phone interpretation in more than 200 languages. We'll talk through the steps for using HIT services on the next slide, but the bottom line is this. You don't have to be fluent in a family's home language to make meaningful contact. These tools help ensure we meet our legal obligation and our ethical commitment to communicate clearly, respectfully, and inclusively with all families. So how do you know when a parent or guardian needs communication to be translated? The answer is simple. You can find that information in Elevation, our district's platform for managing multilingual data. When you log into Elevation and open a student's profile, you'll see several key fields listed under demographics and key attributes. The fields to look for are language, shown in the top section of the student summary, native language, and home language, which appear in the key attributes panel. If any of these fields list a language other than English, for example, Russian, as shown here, that indicates that the family's preferred language for communication is not English. In these cases, all documents, calls, texts, or messages sent home must be translated or interpreted. This is how we fulfill our legal obligation to ensure language access under federal law. You can also use this information to guide decisions about using Aptigee in Rooms, translation in Microsoft Tools, or placing a call through HIT services. Again, if you're ever unsure about a student's language status, please reach out to your school's ML specialist. They are your best resource for support and guidance. Translating your documents doesn't have to be complicated, and you don't need to be fluent in another language to provide access to your students and families. This slide walks you through two simple ways to translate documents using Microsoft Word and a trusted online tool called I Love PDF. First, let's look at how to translate directly in Microsoft Word. Open your document in Word. Click the Review tab at the top. In that tab, click the drop-down arrow next to Translate. Then select Translate Document. Choose the language you need, for example, Spanish, Mandarin, or Arabic. Then click the blue Translate button, and a new translated version will open in a new document window. Here's a tip. When saving your file, include the language in the name. So instead of just Reading Chart Number 1, you might save it as Reading Chart Number 1 Spanish. That way you know which version is which at a glance. Now, if you have a PDF that you need to translate, there's a quick solution for that too. Go to www.ilovepdf.com. Choose the PDF to Word converter. Upload your file by the red Select PDF File button. Once converted, download the Word version to your computer. Then follow the same steps in Word to translate the document. Just like before, be sure to save the translated version with a clear label so that you don't confuse it with the original. These tools are easy to use and can be lifesavers when preparing classroom documents or parent communication that needs to be accessible. Don't be afraid to try it, and if you need support, your school's ML specialist can help walk you through it. In addition to Word and PDF, you can also translate PowerPoint presentations, but with a small difference. PowerPoint does not offer full document translation. Instead, you'll need to highlight the text on each slide and translate it manually. Here's how. Open the PowerPoint and go to the Review tab. Click the Translate button. Highlight the specific text you want translated. Click Insert to replace the original with the translated text. Repeat that for each slide that needs it. Just like with Word, be sure to save the translated version using a name like Reading Chart Number 1 Spanish so you don't overwrite the English copy. Now let's take a look at Schoology. You can change the interface language for a more accessible experience. Scroll to the very bottom of your Schoology page. Click on the word English in the lower corner. Choose the language needed and click Save. Important note, this only changes the platform interface. It does not translate assignments, tests, or content you've uploaded. If you want students to access assignments or instructions in their home language, you'll still need to upload translated copies or provide them with content that can be translated easily using built-in tools. Our district provides the ability to communicate with parents in over 200 languages through HIT services. HIT services must be used for all official oral communication from the school. This includes conversations related to discipline, academics, medical concerns, IEP meetings, and other formal school or district matters. Teachers and students may not serve as interpreters in these situations. HIT interpreters are trained professionals. They are competent in both languages, familiar with educational and specialized terminology, and well-versed in the ethics and confidentiality standard required for interpreting and translating. To use HIT services, call the toll-free number displayed and enter the provided PIN followed by the pound sign. Then select or say the language needed and clearly state the name of your school. You'll be connected to an interpreter, summarize your purpose, and give any special instructions. If needed, the interpreter can also assist with third-party calling. After each call, it's essential to send a follow-up email to Brian Gibbons at bgibbons@acpsd.net. Be sure to include the student's name, the language used, and the approximate time of the call. This helps with verifying invoices from the company. Principals, please ensure this information is shared with all school staff. The HIT services instructions provide step-by-step directions for using the phone interpretation service. Let's work together to ensure all families receive accurate, accessible communication in their home language. When we talk about second language acquisition, it's important to understand that there are two distinct types of language proficiency: BICS, B-I-C-S, and CALP, C-A-L-P. BICS stands for Basic Interpersonal Communicative Skills. This is the type of language students use in everyday conversations, what we sometimes call social language. It's the English students use to chat with friends at recess or greet someone in the hallway. It typically takes 1 to 2 years for students to develop this level of conversational fluency. CALP, on the other hand, stands for Cognitive Academic Language Proficiency. This is the language of school, the complex academic vocabulary and sentence structures students need to understand content, follow instructions, and express ideas in subjects like math, science, and language arts. CALP takes much longer to develop, 5 to 7 years on average. Understanding the difference between these two is critical. A student may sound fluent in English when speaking socially, but still struggle significantly with academic language needed for success in the classroom. Elevation is our web-based platform designed to help manage all compliance paperwork, ML meetings, and monitoring forms. This system holds all data about our multilingual learners, and it syncs nightly with PowerSchool to ensure up-to-date student information. It helps us identify trends and patterns among our ML population and provides valuable resources and language support recommendations for teachers. You'll find examples of accommodations for both assignments and assessments, and it serves as a collaborative space for ESOL teachers and general education teachers to work together. Elevation also provides individual student data to help guide instruction and ensure that support is tailored to each student's needs. And finally, Through the Strategies portal, Elevation offers access to the South Carolina Department of Education approved ESOL endorsement pathway, so teachers can complete endorsement training directly in the system. This is a powerful tool that supports both compliance and classroom instruction. Let's talk about how to access the Elevation platform. To log in, you'll use your district email address as your username. Your password is teacher created, so if you've logged in before, use the password you set. If you've forgotten it, you can reset it using the Forgot Password link on the login page. The easiest way to access Elevation is through the Digital Resources section on the district website or through ClassLink. Once you're in, scroll down and click on the link labeled Elevation. You'll see it highlighted here on the Digital Resources with the red arrow. Here's an important tip. Bookmark the Elevation site on your computer. You'll be using this platform all year long to manage important information for your multilingual learners, so easy access is essential. Once you've logged into Elevation, finding student information is simple. First, go to the top menu and click on the tab labeled Student List. This will pull up a searchable list of all multilingual learners assigned to you. If you're looking for a specific student, use the search bar in the top right corner. You can search by first name, last name, or student ID number. Once selected, you'll see detailed student data, such as proficiency level, language background, accommodations, and monitoring history. This section is a powerful tool to help guide your instruction and support each individual student. Understanding key terms used in Multilingual Learner Program and in Elevation is essential and critical for supporting your students. Let's start with ILAP, which stands for Individual Language Acquisition Plan. This document outlines each ML student's accommodations and language development goals. ML refers to multilingual learner. In Elevation, you may also see the term EL for English learner. These are used interchangeably. ML students who scored between 1.0 and 4.3 on the Access test. AW means awaiting records. These are new students to our district whose home language survey indicated another language and we're waiting for records or need to complete screening. A1 to A2 are students taking the alternate access due to significant cognitive difficulties. These students are usually in self-contained classrooms. Students labeled M1 through M4 are monitored for 4 years after exiting ESOL services. 8 FRMML stands for Former ML. These students completed all 4 years of monitoring and are now considered bilingual. 8 NVRML stands for Never ML. These students speak another language but tested out on the screener and did not qualify for ESOL services. You'll encounter these codes often in Elevation, so it's important to be familiar with them. The Student Dashboard in Elevation gives you a quick and comprehensive snapshot of key student information. At the top, you'll find several tabs like Demographics, Schedule, Test Results, Can-Do Descriptors, Services and Programs, Test Accommodations, Goals, and more. Each of these provides important insights into your student's academic profile and language development. From the Demographics tab, you can view personal details such as grade level, country of birth, native language, and years in U.S. schools. The EL Information section indicates the student's current status, tier, and whether they are receiving services or being monitored. The Documents tab is where you'll find any uploaded files, like previous ILAPs or parent communication. It's important to become familiar with this layout so you can quickly find what you need to support your MLs effectively throughout the year. When navigating the Elevation platform, there are several key areas you'll want to become familiar with to support your multilingual learners effectively. The Test Results tab gives you access to students' access scores and other relevant assessments like iReady. Can-do descriptors provide detailed insight into what students at each language proficiency level are typically able to do in reading, writing, speaking, and listening. This is incredibly helpful when planning instruction. The Services and Programs tab outlines whether a student is receiving direct ESOL services or is being monitored. Instructional and assessment accommodations found under the ILAP section are where you'll see the supports each student is entitled to during instruction and testing. Monitoring and Notes allows you to view progress and updates for students who have exited services. And finally, the Documents section stores ILAPs, screener results, parent letters, and other important files. Each of these sections plays a crucial role in ensuring ML students get the support they need to succeed. The Elevation Strategies dashboard is where teachers can find targeted, research-based strategies to support their multilingual learners. Start by clicking the Dashboard drop-down arrow in the top left corner of the screen. Next, select the Strategies dashboard from the options. This will bring up personalized instructional strategies for your students based on their individual data across all domains: listening, speaking, reading, and writing. These strategies are designed to help students grow and succeed in your classroom. Additionally, teachers can click the Strategies tab at the top of the page to access training modules. Completing these modules earns you CEUs and also counts towards the South Carolina Department of Education ESOL endorsement pathway. This dashboard is a powerful tool for planning instruction, differentiating support, and tracking growth throughout the year. In Elevation, monitoring forms are essential for tracking the progress of students who have either exited ESOL services but are still being monitored during the 4-year federal monitoring period, or students who are failing academic classes. Teachers will complete these forms every grading period for each monitored student and any students failing academic classes. These forms help us evaluate how well students are performing in the general education classroom and whether any additional language support may be needed. To access the forms, simply click the Forms tab on the student dashboard. From there, you'll see a button to complete monitoring forms. The questions focus on academic performance, language development, and classroom participation. Once submitted, the forms are stored in Elevation for documentation and compliance purposes. If you ever notice a monitored student struggling, please reach out to your school's ML specialist right away so we can provide timely support. In the landmark 1974 Supreme Court case Lau v. Nichols, the court ruled that equal education opportunities require more than simply providing the same resources to all students. The ruling emphasized that students who do not understand English are denied meaningful access to education if no additional support is provided. This decision laid legal foundation for the instructional services we now provide to multilingual learners. ILAPs exist to help ensure that education is not just equal in theory, but meaningful in practice for every student. ILAPs are created for any multilingual learner who has not yet exited the ESOL program based on their Access test scores. These plans ensure the student receives the necessary instructional support to make content accessible. Additionally, students who have exited the program but are still in their 4-year monitoring period may also be given an ILAP if they begin to show signs of academic difficulty. In those cases, the ILAP provides instructional accommodations only to help them stay on track. When it's time to complete an ILAP, your ESOL specialist will create a meeting in Elevation. This meeting includes all relevant educators such as classroom teachers and specialists and outlines the student's language proficiency levels and instructional needs. You'll collaborate as a team to determine the most appropriate accommodations to support the student's language acquisition and academic success. When participating in an ILAP meeting, it's important to consider the student's Access for ELL scores. These scores provide insight into the student's proficiency in listening, speaking, reading, and writing. This data helps guide the team in selecting appropriate instructional accommodations and supports to ensure the student has meaningful access to content instruction. Once you've reviewed the Access scores and discussed student needs, it's time to document appropriate instructional accommodations. Click on the Edit button beside the Instructional Accommodations section to view available options and make necessary changes that support the student's language development and access to content. Remember, this is a team decision and should reflect what will be consistently implemented in the classroom. The ILAP is a working document, which means it can be adjusted throughout the year as the student's needs evolve. As you can see in the differentiation statement, accommodations are based on current proficiency levels and can be expanded based on student need or teacher recommendation. Once the team has collaborated and agreed on supports, all participants will finalize and e-sign the ILAP within Elevation. This ensures shared responsibility and clarity for everyone involved. If you forget anything, don't worry. Everything is saved and accessible in Elevation. You can review all past ILAP meetings, notes, accommodations, and documents by clicking the Forms tab in a student's profile. This makes it easy to refer back to the decisions made and the supports in place. Can-do descriptors are a strengths-based tool developed by WIDA that highlight what multilingual learners can do at each stage of English language development. Instead of focusing on what students lack, can-do descriptors help us recognize their current capabilities and use that information to guide instruction. This empowers us to meet students where they are and provide meaningful scaffolded support that builds on their strengths. Can-do descriptors give you a clear, research-based picture of what to expect from your multilingual learners at each stage of their language development. They help you design lessons that are appropriately scaffolded, ensuring students can participate meaningfully and successfully. You can find the can-do descriptors in your printed WIDA materials or access them directly in Elevation by selecting the Can-Dos tab under your student's profile. Here's a simple way to use the can-do descriptors in your planning. Just think 1, 2, 3. First, choose one domain, listening, speaking, reading, or writing, to focus on. Second, look at what your student currently can do based on their proficiency level. And third, look ahead to the next level to see what skills you want to help them develop next. This progression can guide you how to scaffold instruction and build language goals that are both supportive and challenging. This is a great example of how to accommodate an assignment using a student's can-do descriptors. On the left, we see the original Ancient Egypt assessment, multiple choice and text-heavy. For a student at an entering proficiency level, this format would likely be inaccessible. On the right, the same content has been modified to align with the student's language proficiency, using visuals and matching tasks. This version supports the student's current ability to match icons and diagrams with words, just as the can-do descriptors suggest. And importantly, we would use a rubric aligned to the student's proficiency level when grading, as outlined in their ILAP accommodations. Multilingual learners are constantly acquiring new vocabulary, minute by minute. What may look like a simple math problem to a native speaker can actually involve multiple layers of language complexity for a multilingual learner. Words like subtract, minus, difference, from, away, and less all mean similar things in this context, but each has a different structure and placement in a sentence. That's why it's critical to be explicit in your vocabulary instruction. Don't assume students automatically know or understand these words variations. Instead, take the time to model, explain, and reinforce academic language regularly. When planning instruction for multilingual learners, it's important to incorporate strategies that support both language development and content mastery. Start by making lessons as visual as possible. This provides comprehensible input and helps students connect language to meaning. Use visuals like closed notes, pictures, labels, and physical objects to make concepts clear. Model your expectations clearly. The I do, we do, you do structure ensures students have guided practice before working independently. Show examples and walk through steps to build confidence. The picture word inductive model is another effective strategy, using images and labeling to build vocabulary and literacy simultaneously. Give students opportunities for output. This means letting them use the language. This will vary depending on their proficiency. Use small groups, sentence frames, and word banks to reduce pressure and support language use. For students at lower levels, allow time to sit in the silent period and don't require oral responses right away. And finally, make sure homework is differentiated based on students' language levels so they can access the content and demonstrate their understanding. Comprehensible input is a cornerstone of effective instruction for multilingual learners. This model emphasizes making language understandable through a variety of supportive strategies. Start by lowering your rate of speech, not to the point of sounding unnatural, but just enough to allow students time to process. Use gestures to reinforce meaning, and incorporate visuals, realia, those are objects that are real and touchable, and multimedia whenever possible. Point to specific objects or examples during instruction to ground your language in something students can see. This visual anchoring helps bridge the gap between spoken language and understanding. And finally, create opportunities for low-stress output. When students feel safe to try using language without fear of mistakes, their confidence and ability grow. The picture word inductive model is a powerful strategy for building vocabulary and sentence structure through images. It begins with a photo, something connected to the unit or content you're teaching. Students observe, discuss, and label everything they see. From there, the teacher guides students through word sorting and categorizing, highlighting phonics, cognates, and key vocabulary. As you can see on the right, the model gradually moves from the word level to the sentence level, and finally to discourse, where students generate full paragraphs using the words and sentence frames they've built together. This method scaffolds language development while keeping the focus on content. It's visual, engaging, and accessible for all proficiency levels, especially when paired with leveled extension activities like those listed at the bottom right of the slide. Before any test, it's important to help MLs understand what they're being asked to do, not just academically, but linguistically. Start by rewriting the directions in simpler language on the board and modeling what the directions mean. Next, read the directions out loud and have the student explain in their own words what they're supposed to do. This gives you a quick check on their understanding and lets them clarify any confusion before the test even begins. You can also highlight key terms on their test, especially words that direct their attention or signal important concepts. Sharing your class notes can be incredibly helpful, as MLs may not have captured the same information due to language barriers. And finally, don't overlook test-taking vocabulary. Words like define, accept, or compare can easily trip students up if they're unfamiliar. Taking time to go over these terms can reduce confusion and improve confidence going into the test. During a test, there are several key accommodations we can make to ensure multilingual learners have equitable access. First, allow students to use a word-to-word translator or bilingual dictionary if permitted by your test guidelines. Also consider adjusting the number of test items based on a student's English proficiency level. For example, if your general education students receive 30 items, a level M1 might only receive 10. A level 2 student could receive 20. This helps reduce cognitive overload and focuses the assessment on the most essential content. If you're assessing content knowledge rather than reading skill, it's appropriate to read questions aloud to the student. This simple support can make a big difference. And don't forget to provide cognates when possible. These are words that are similar in English and the student's native language, like exam and examen, or instructions and instrucciones. Cognates help bridge understanding and build confidence during assessments. After a test, it's important to remember that assessment for multilingual learners should reflect both what they know and how they are progressing in their language development. First, grade only the items that the ML student attempted or completed. Don't penalize students for skipping items that were beyond their language level, especially if you've reduced the number of test items based on their proficiency. Second, be sure to give credit not just for the final product, but also the process. Did the student show growth? Did they attempt to organize their thinking or apply vocabulary they've learned? These efforts matter and should be acknowledged. Lastly, consider adjusting how grades are weighted to reflect the student's language proficiency. A student who is just beginning to acquire English might demonstrate strong content knowledge in an alternate way that doesn't rely heavily on language. Fair grading practices are essential to building confidence and keeping students engaged. When asking multilingual learners to respond to short answer or discussion questions, providing a word bank can make a significant difference. For example, when students are asked to describe the water cycle, offering key vocabulary terms such as evaporation, condensation, precipitation, and collection gives them the language they need to successfully respond. This support helps students focus on content rather than struggling to recall or spell unfamiliar words. It also builds their academic vocabulary over time. Word banks can be used for writing, speaking, and even during assessments depending on your instructional goals. Here's another example of using a word bank, this time in math. When students are asked to solve an equation and explain their thinking, we can support multilingual learners by providing key academic vocabulary that helps them describe the process. In this example, the word bank includes terms like add, both, sides, equation, divide, and answer. These are essential words that students might understand conceptually, but not yet be able to express in English. Including a word bank not only supports their explanation, but also builds content-specific language skills in context. Another powerful support strategy for multilingual learners is providing sentence frames. Sentence frames help students organize their thinking and language when responding to short answer or discussion questions. In this science example, the sentence frame scaffolds an explanation of how plants make their own food. Students can focus on inserting key vocabulary like leaves, sun, water, and carbon dioxide without struggling to generate the entire response from scratch. This allows them to demonstrate their content knowledge while continuing to develop academic English. Sentence frames can also support multilingual learners in extended writing tasks, such as expository or descriptive writing. In this example, students are writing a description of a state in the Southeast region. The structured sentence stems provide students with a model for academic writing and allows them to focus on inserting content-specific vocabulary. This helps build both writing fluency and confidence. Using supports like this ensures that students can engage with grade-level content while continuing to develop their language skills. Highlighting is a simple yet powerful strategy to support multilingual learners. Whether during instruction or on assessments, you can use highlighting to draw attention to key words, instructions, or important information. This helps students focus, reduces cognitive overload, and guides them toward what matters most in the task. It's especially helpful for learners who may still be developing their academic vocabulary or test-taking skills. Highlighting with a purpose can transform how multilingual learners engage with content. In this example, color is used to group vocabulary into categories: red for weather instruments, blue for types of clouds, and green for steps in the water cycle. This visual differentiation helps students focus on the meaning and context of each word. It supports comprehension, vocabulary development, and task completion, all while making learning more accessible and organized. This is an example of using color-coded highlighting to support text-based responses. Each question is paired with a specific color, and the corresponding answer in the passage is highlighted in the same color. This strategy helps multilingual learners clearly see where to find evidence in the text. It also models how to match questions with specific details, promoting comprehension and accurate responses. Teachers can narrow or broaden support by highlighting shorter or longer portions of the text. Authentic or alternate assessments can be used to replace or enhance traditional assessments for multilingual learners. These types of assessments allow students to demonstrate their understanding in more meaningful and accessible ways. Options include creating posters, poems or songs, timelines, models, and short PowerPoint presentations. Teachers can also assess through oral interviews, observation, or portfolios. These methods help students show what they know, even when they're still developing their English skills. As we close, here are some key points to reflect on. First, the most important information you can know about any multilingual learner in your classroom is their level of English proficiency. This helps guide the type and intensity of support they need. Second, not all ML students require the same level of differentiation or accommodations. Their needs can vary greatly depending on language level, background knowledge, and time in U.S. schools. And finally, ESOL accommodations aren't a one-size-fits-all approach. It's about providing the right support at the right time to ensure students have equitable access to learning. When it comes to academic challenges, there are two important areas to be aware of. On the left, we have students who may have suspected special education needs. It's often hard to identify these accurately when language is a factor. We must be sure to rule out whether the student's struggles are due to language acquisition, educational gaps, or actual learning differences. If you have concerns, please follow the SIT referral process and notify your ML specialist so we can partner together. On the right, you'll see information about students with limited or interrupted formal education, or SLIFE. These students may have difficulty adjusting to classroom routines, and they often lack foundational literacy in their home language. They may require more intensive support and modifications early on, but the good news is that these needs typically lessen as their English skills grow. Thank you so much for joining this overview of ESOL support for mainstream educators. Your role is essential in helping our multilingual learners thrive. With your partnership, we can ensure these students have the access, support, and opportunities they need to succeed academically and grow in their English proficiency. If you have any questions or need support, please don't hesitate to reach out to me or the ML specialist at your school. I'm here to help. Thank you for all you do to make a difference in the lives of our students.